time. So let me just say welcome to everybody. Thank you so much for coming. And we look forward to being fascinated by Liz, who is to whom I'm now going to hand over the meeting. So good luck, Liz.
Yeah, good. Thanks very much. Yes, hi. So I'm Liz Reason. I'm from Charlbury, and Charlbury is in West Oxfordshire, and we're about 17 miles northwest of Oxford. And we're on the main Paddington to Hereford line, and we have buses into Oxford, Chipping Norton, Whitney. We're pretty well served with public transport. So I am going to see if I can share my screen. I'm not sure what order to do this in. Share screen. I have got this open.
That looks good, Liz. Well done. You might want to go into slideshow mode. Yep, there you go. Perfect.
There we go.
Yep, you're all set.
So, well, first of all, I thought I'd introduce, I'm going to explain how we got here, but I thought you'd be interested to see our branding. When Charlbury Town Council was re-energized, we actually decided that we would brand ourselves, which some people found a little bit, it's not the sort of thing parish council should do. But actually, we very cheaply got this volunteers who took an existing logo that we had, which was like a small building with tree feet, like the ones you see on the trees, and just turned that roof, maybe a former market protector, we're not quite sure, and turned it into trees. So we're all rather fond of that. But we have been taking quite a lot of action on climate and nature. So I hope this will now move next. Okay, why did Charlbury Town Council decide to take action on climate in the first instance? I have to say I have been on the town council for a long time, since about 2012, and it wasn't always very thrilling, and I was sometimes quite half-hearted about it. But, occasionally we could get something interesting done, which made it worthwhile staying. And then one day somebody stopped me in the street and said, well, look, would you like a petition to ask you to declare a climate emergency, which was unlike anything our council would ever have considered before. And the petition was received, a special meeting was held, and then councillors unanimously voted for the climate emergency. I mean, was I surprised? Yes, I was. They started talking about these lights should be off and things go on all around town. And I realized if you do something like declaring a climate emergency, you give people the license to talk about things that they haven't felt they had the space to talk about. So that was very interesting. So then they said, now what do we do? And we had a packed out public meeting. Charlbury being what it is, I kind of told you about the rail line because it means that we have quite a few interesting people stay here who are actually commuting to London or Oxford or Reading. And it so happened that the chief economist for the Committee on Climate Change lives here in Charlbury. So he's no longer there, he's moved jobs, but he was willing, therefore, to give us a presentation at a public meeting. And then we organized this workshop of, 75 people turned up, which was really good, in our memorial hall. And, we had a former director of Friends of the Earth acted as our facilitator. And we like visual minutes. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with visual minutes, but in order to capture discussion And what has been agreed, you do it in pictures, which can easily be shared. I mean, we've had this printed out and it's been made into a banner hanging on the railings on a few occasions. And you can see from this the sort of, a number of common themes that came out, philosophy and so on. What can we do as a community? We are a very active community, as I'm sure a lot of yours are as well. A lot of it about sharing and getting everybody to acknowledge that they had things to do, and then gradually picking up the notion that there are specific things that we could think about doing. So you can see in there nature, in a kind of mauve colour there on the left-hand side, and then homes, energy, journeys, not travel, not transport, but trying to get people to think about actually how do we move around. It isn't always in a car or a taxi or whatever. And as a result of that, we ended up setting up 6 topic-based working groups, which you can see there. And it allowed us, these didn't have to be counsellors. So there were people there who were very enthusiastic, who had good ideas, who wanted to get involved. And provided you set something up as a working group of the town council, then you're at liberty to involve volunteers as well. And before I forget, I'm going to mention that one of the things that has transformed the way we work is that we use Basecamp. And I don't know how many of those listening know what Basecamp is, but it's a web application that allows you to share information around a lot of topics just in that one place. So you don't end up with 100 emails, you end up with a lovely structured, quite nicely designed space where you can see councillors and volunteers having discussions. And the volunteers aren't given access to town council business, so it's very flexible for you to be able to do that. So then the things and the sort of speed with which the groups have operated has varied, but I mean, that's normal of life. And stuff ended up, it still happens, but not as a town council activity, but there's a small group of people who, organise bring and take and apple sharing and things like that. But we have set up an engagement group because we realise actually we're not terribly good at sharing what we do. So as a result of the engagement group last year, we actually did our first survey of all the residents in town to ask them how we're doing and what they like about what we do and what they don't like about what we do. And that came about as a result of doing, I think it was a NALC training course on engagement that was really good and I would recommend. But as a result of all this new energy coming in 2021, look at that, 18 candidates stood for 12 town council seats. So it wasn't all change, but it was significant change. It brought a different culture to the council. And one of the things it allowed us to do, we had a very nice town clerk who'd been in post for 43 years and was not a user of Excel or Word. So, we've actually got a new town clerk now who is also re-energized the town council. And we actually decided that we would write a strategy, which here it is, and we're reviewing it now because we've got new councillors. Unfortunately, energy hasn't quite kept up in the same way. So new councillors with slightly different perspectives. So we're currently reviewing the strategy, but nothing really specific has changed. Community, nature and climate are all the things which we still care about and which drive a lot of our activity. And, you know, the previous council had also got a Charlbury neighbourhood plan drafted and put to a referendum. So that also sets out a lot of policies. Sorry. Oh, yes, it does come. Now, we are a bit special in Charlbury as well. This is nothing to do with the town council, but we do have a solar farm, which we first conceived of in 2012 and finally got it built in 2015 using the last government subsidy. It was a struggle, you know, getting planning consent in an area of outstanding natural beauty wasn't straightforward. But, you know, we did it. We had 380 members who invested in 2015, and we've been paying 5% a year. This year we're going to pay 7%. Because they all missed out in the first year because of the way we decided to distribute the community benefit. And we have lost a few members. One of the planning conditions was that we should pay 15,000 a year to Cotswold National Landscape. And then the community benefit we distribute through Sustainable Charlbury, which is the charity. You can look that up. We've just built a new website. So the solar farm is, actually, I'll go back to that. I mean, it is a delight. We have a landowner at Cornbury Park, which you can see behind, which is the Witchwood Forest. The landowner leased us the whole field, but only charges us for that part of the field, which has got the panels on it. And the rest has been given over to biodiversity. We have an ecologist who develops plans, and we have lots of volunteer working parties. And we are, you know, the biodiversity has increased dramatically. We know we're improving the soil. We have a beekeeper, we have fruit trees. We've just done some hedge laying using fipple planting from Cotswold National Landscape. So actually we end up getting back some of the money we give to CNL, and we've just fenced a lot of it off because we want to introduce sheep. We've built a pond. You know, it's exciting. Its only downside is it isn't easy to access on foot from Charlbury, even though it's only a mile away. So we also have something called Cozy Homes Oxfordshire, which happens to be based in Charlbury. That's where their office is. They're active all over Oxfordshire. They work closely with the City Council and the County Council, and they are one of the few organisations that is expert in the delivery of zero carbon homes. So it's very interesting and useful for us to have here, because if you've declared a climate emergency, you want to help people with getting their buildings lower energy, lower carbon. And they know good people to help deliver that, because we know the buildings industry is not actually designed to deliver low energy, low carbon buildings, unfortunately. We also have this very active local website, which has a forum, adverts. You can see all the things that can be done there. And that was just developed by one of our residents, and it's nothing to do with the town council. We can put our stuff on there, but our town council website is a different beast. But this has lots of discussions on it. And if we want people to go to our website, then we use the forum or news, events, whatever, to make that happen. So that also is incredibly useful, and a lot of people at least watch that website, even if they don't all participate. And we do have a debate section, because some people get quite heated, and that is moved away into a place that is not so public. Okay, so what have the working groups been doing since 2021? Well, the first thing was we own the mill field, which is down by the railway station, and everybody sees the water flowing through the mill leat and thinks, oh, we must be able to generate electricity from that. And my career was spent in energy in buildings, renewable energy and so on. So I knew that was highly unlikely there was enough water there, but we we did undertake a feasibility study, so we can at least say to people, no, it can't be done. Lovely as it would be to do, there isn't enough water, there isn't enough of a head to generate electricity. And then we started organising a weekly local food market over the summer months using local suppliers of various kinds. They've changed over time. We've got Ditchley Estate is also very close to us, and they cull a lot of deer, and they've started selling deer, but they won't come to the food market because they cannot meet demand, you know, for a local low carbon food. So they don't need to come to the market. They've just got freezers and people go there and buy it. And we know, you know, there's so much more that could be done about culling deer in the whole of the Cotswolds. It is a serious problem because they eat everything. They come into my garden and eat everything. It's pretty upsetting, actually. Then, using cozy homes, we came up with this home comforts project, which was actually funded by a local business that has a charitable arm. So they paid for this work to be done, although the idea had come from cozy homes. Look, homes in Charlbury were built in like the 18th century, the 19th century, then 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, 1980s. You can see that they are of their decade. So they came up with the idea of 10 home typologies, which they went round Charlbury and selected them, and then they varied them a little bit, and then modelled those homes using their software. It's worth looking at their website because it can be done for free, and came up with the costs and benefits of moving to net zero. Our engagement on that wasn't very good, so we were a bit disappointed with where that went, but there's more ideas coming. And we have a new chair of the buildings working group who's encouraging residents to install solar on rooftops. And our local community centre, which the South Hill funds helped make much lower energy, has actually decided to go net zero. So they're going to install lots of panels and air source heat pump. Then very early on, we bought an electric pipe to lend out to residents because our county councillor, Liz Leffman, she's the leader of the county and she happens to live just up the road here. So she is our local councillor as well. And she helped us buy this electric bike, which gets lent out to anybody for a week or a fortnight at a time. We did lots to promote bus stops. It's very confusing in Charlbury, the way the one-way system works, to actually understand where to catch a bus from. So we've put up maps and so on. We promoted the £2 fare. We've explored setting up an electric car club, but we're not a big enough community to merit something like that. But 2 households went on hire car, but again, we haven't promoted it terribly well. And then we decided that, you know, Charlbury is becoming more and more popular. We have a pub called The Bull, which keeps marketing itself, and it's in every magazine, and suddenly, you know, we're kind of full of big cars. We're close to Soho House. Jeremy Clarkson has moved nearby, and Joe Bamford has moved nearby. So we've actually reached the point where we have to introduce a residents' parking scheme. And then the Journeys team, actually, because the county liked to see how active we were, they agreed they would use us as a rural community for whom they would develop a local cycling and walking infrastructure plan, an LC WIP. And it took them 3 years to finish it because we were not top priority, but we now have it. And we've decided we can't, first of all, councillors have to decide what of it they welcome, and some of it perhaps they won't welcome anyway. But also we don't want to introduce the LC WIP just as the residents' parking scheme has gone in, even though we had 85% support for the residents' parking scheme. We know that the other 15% are loud in their criticism and their concern. So the LC won't happen until September or October, which gives us plenty of time to work it through. Got a walk as a welcome town, so that comes under the Journeys team. And again, we got money from Cotswold National Landscape, and we're working with the hotel, the pubs with rooms, and to have local walks, leaflets, maps at the station, maps outside our co-op and so on. Is that going to move? And then the Land and Nature Working Group has sort of been bubbling along, doing lots of different little things here. So we've got the Wigwell Nature Reserve, we've got the Bout Nature Reserve, and we've worked quite closely with the Evenlode Catchment Partnership to undertake a number of projects. And once again, we find ourselves with, an academic expert who chairs that, and another academic expert who's incredibly active in the group. Somebody set up their own Charlbury wildlife group. And because we are active and we've been doing things on the mill field, the Environment Agency and the partnership saw that the weir needed repair or replacement. So the partnership has actually funded a design for it's a rock ramp fish pass. And we're trying to do things with the bit of the river that we own to make improvements there. Let's try moving on here. So this seems to be, oh, here we are. This is a big picture, obviously. So we've been attempting floodplain meadow restoration. We've been, cutting back trees or planting trees and trying to plant wildflowers and things. And we've been learning the hard way that it isn't easy. And we've been trying to sow yellow rattle, for example, and 2 years ago, lots of volunteers went down there and raked up the mill field and sowed yellow rattle. And guess what? The mill field was flooded, which is what one would expect of it. And we've done it again this year, but we've actually done a lot of learning now from Aynsham, which is also in West Oxfordshire outside Oxford, where Longmead is one of the very few existing wildflower meadows. And that is owned by two scientists who for 10 years have been doing a lot of interesting work to keep that meadow in excellent and improving condition. And they have decided that the only way to really restore a meadow in this way is to use 6 months longer, maybe, to sow seeds, bring them on and turn them into sizable plug plants. And that is what really makes for effective meadow restoration. So we're just looking at engaging with them, and they inspired everybody because they came and spoke. Catriona Bass came and spoke. This was just the 11th of January. So 80 people turned out when we declared Charlbury's 2025 was going to be our first year of nature recovery. And it was really quite amazing, the number of people who came, different ages, different interests, all popping up to say what they are willing to do, what they could help to make happen. And again, we used a visual monitor who's actually, she's picked up on some of the key issues. So at Longmead, they've discovered that they must have a network and not a hierarchy. You can't have somebody at the top or people at the top trying to dictate things. You've got to generate this sense of everybody having a part to play and just keeping them in touch with one another. And the Visual Minuter has actually designed the visual minutes so that bits of this can be picked out and used as logos for different kinds of activity. So here's your Toad Patrol one, or the Verges. And we're now setting up WhatsApp connections for people who are willing to come and help with, different activities. Oh, waiting for it to move on. These are rather huge pictures. So this is my last slide. When we started out in that first strategy, we put up this graph, which we got from the impact software provided by CSE, Centre for Sustainable Energy in Bristol. And I'm thrilled to tell you that in 2022, when we looked at this, the per household consumption footprint was 20.4 tonnes. So have we succeeded? Of course, I don't really think so, because clearly the way these numbers are being modelled, which are not measured, means that they're modelling it differently from what it was. So, how can we say what we've achieved beyond these activities? The actual measurement and monitoring of numerical outcomes, I imagine to be extremely difficult, but I thought that would be an interesting place to end the discussion and have a chat.
Sorry, I lost my control of the microphone. Liz, I found that utterly fascinating. Thank you very much. Amazing how much a reasonably small town can achieve in certainly a period of a few years, but it does give a lot of encouragement to the rest of us. I'm going to ask people to raise their hands if they'd like to chat. And Sarah, you're there first, or albeit you like to do it manually.
Can you hear me okay? And apologies for the coffee throat. Liz, that was absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. It was, just inspiring stuff. And just to put it in context for me, so I'm the Climate Action and Community Engagement Chair for Home Valley Parish Council. We've got 23 councillors. It's a fairly sizable parish council, 23,000 people in Home Valley, etc., etc. What strikes me is that you've succeeded in achieving a lot of your objectives, and you set about it absolutely systematically, it's clear. And that whole business of having a strategy laid out was central to how you started. But my main question is, what were the key factors in getting people actually to join in and do stuff? Because one of the things we're struggling with is volunteer flagging. We've got masses and masses of community organisations who do all sorts of stuff. We've got loads of things going on in the council. We've achieved lots of things, we think. But in comparison to what we might achieve with more people, I suppose we're at a bit of a loss. And we know some of this is about engagement. We've decided to put climate action back to the full council rather than it being something that's a separate committee, so that it can work quickly and smartly. But also to have a community engagement group, which is also directly reporting to full council, so that we can work more smartly. We had a big community event in November, which was massively successful, hundreds of local organisations. But still, what we struggle with is people to really get on board with the things that they might and can do on a regular personal basis in relation to climate climate action. Sorry, that's a bit long-winded, but you see where I'm coming from.
I mean, you know, I don't know how many volunteers we have, because people do different things in different ways. I mean, there must be 100 people engaged in doing different things, I'm sure. But Longmead has got 750 people on their mailing list volunteering to come and help with their wildflower meadow and associated things. I don't feel we're that good. I feel doing the survey was very good. And I think we got like more than 20% of people responded to the survey, and which is quite good for that kind of thing. And one of the things the engagement group is doing now is saying, we're not just going to deliver leaflets. Each councillor is going to deliver leaflets and talk to people, and they talk to people. I've met people. I discovered there are 6 people called Liz live in my street.
Yeah, that's been one of our strategies, I have to say. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Really great. Can you share your slide? I'll be able to get a copy of the slides.
Yeah, Graham can share it, put it on the wiki.
And Sarah, I'm going to put into the chat the names or the numbers of 2 of the sessions that we've held in the past on community organization and how to get people enthused.
Okay.
They're stunningly successful, I find. So I'll put those into the chat for you. And in the meantime, perhaps we can pass on to Stuart, please.
Hi, thank you. I mean, as people are saying in the chat, that was truly inspirational. It's amazing what you've achieved, and with such a relatively small population. My question was going to be about how did you get such good engagement? Maybe you could tell us a little bit more about the NALC engagement training.
Yeah, well, as I say, I did that through NALC, and it was 2 separate sessions, and it's I imagine it's still available through them. And he was the one who introduced me to the idea of doing surveys, and it has to be a survey which is similar year on year, because you're trying to match progress, you know, to monitor progress from one year to the next. So we're about to do our second one. It'll go out at the beginning of March, I think. We also, with our new town clerk, you know, the annual parish meeting, I'm sure you can imagine what our original annual parish meeting used to be. Here are the things that we have done in the last year. Whereas now it's cheese and wine. It's sometimes we're having a speaker, we have stalls, you know, and it's brought in a different audience. So that's what you have to do, so many things. I mean, I've never forgotten a friend of mine telling me years ago that he was at the Open University and he knew he had to go and stand by the water cooler. You know, that's how some people engage. And, you know, everybody's different and they will engage in different ways.
Okay, thank you. My second question, if I may, is you've obviously got a broad range of housing structures that you divided into, I think you said 7 types.
10, yeah.
10. I was just wondering what you recommend for the sort of hard to treat houses. I'm sure you've got some with sort of solid walls.
Oh yes, yes, we do. Well, I'll tell you about that project, Home Comfort. So Cozy Homes really know their stuff, but they're you know, relatively, I would say, brand new. They started in about 2019 with government funding, and they are not for profit, and believe me, they don't make a profit. And they're getting more sophisticated as they go along. And that report they did for us, Home Comforts, it was very, you know, professional and well done. But actually, you know, when it said for, you know, for £10, you can save this much energy, this much CO2. And then for £55,000, you know, you can save 2% of energy. And, you know, and I thought, the messaging in it really wasn't right, but the notion of a whole house plan is. If you go to their website, Cozy Homes website, you can use their software tool, which comes from the sort of parent organization. And that's quite sophisticated, and you can put in any kind of property. And forever, somebody last time I was here said that, you know, they were going to go on the basis of the energy performance certificates in town. And I can tell you that when our experts went round town to do that home comforts project, they quickly realized loads of those EPCs were nonsense. That's the trouble, you know, we do not have good quality reporting and compliance, you know, and you can get an EPC for 50 quid, you know. Is it?
Perfect. Thank you.
It's written on.
Sorry, guys, I was busy looking up something about Cozy Homes. Looks like Amanda has backed off. So, Gary, would you like to join in, please?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Liz. I was just wondering, does the town council itself have a net zero plan to get to zero emissions?
We don't have
And
anything. We don't own any buildings, so we don't have any vehicles, nothing. So it wouldn't make sense for us to do that. It's only encouraging the community. I also want to say, when South Hill refinanced, so it got going with a commercial bank loan as well as our member investors, we ended up refinancing with the West Oxfordshire District Council, who very cheerfully lent us £2.5 million. So we are actually quite community owned, and it's, you know, it's good for them. I mean, we pay them interest, it's a loan.
Thank you very much. And Helen, down in Weymouth, please.
Hello, I must say that that was a really, really interesting presentation, and I have written down loads of notes of things that I need to follow up. In Weymouth, we declared a climate emergency in 2019, and I'm chair of our climate and environmental emergency working group. And I have to say the council as a whole, because we have 25 councillors now, but we have a population of 60,000 plus. So my problems are not quite the same as yours. And I also a different demographic of population, I should imagine, not quite so well heeled down here. Yeah, but I have to say our council has been very proactive, and all of the council buildings that can take solar power have got solar panels, and we're slowly changing the fleet of, I think, 6 vehicles that are run by the Parks Department are all going over to electric. But we've still got loads to do. I mean, our biggest CO2 expense is keeping the beach clean, because we have a beach, and we have a terrible, like anybody in a seaside resort around the country. People come on holiday, they come because they've seen the photographs of a beautiful beach, and then they leave their rubbish behind. And honestly, how we're going to, because we've declared we're going to get to net zero as a council by 2030, which is 5 years away. And I don't think we're going to get there, because 60% of our CO2 is the beach cleaning.
Wow.
How on earth? I personally think it needs to be much bigger than parish level, because it is every single resort has exactly the same problems, and without some serious law changes or something, none of us are going to get there.
Yeah, people are a problem, aren't they? Some people are a problem.
Animals are much better to deal with. But I also say, on the plus side, we do have an urban farm, and it's organic, and we have fruit trees, and ponds, and all of our parks stuff is to be transferred there. So we're going to have greenhouses growing the stuff of the Parks Department. And we have lots of volunteers, and we help out lots of mental health charities and whatnot who need that sort of outside space, hands-on for mental health. So yes, we do lots of things, but we've got huge problems. But it's really inspiring to hear what you've done, and yeah, thank you.
Helen, could you resolve a puzzle for me, please? Because I also live in a seaside town, and we do weekly beach cleans. But how are you calculating that 60% of your CO2 comes from?
It's on the weight of the waste that is collected by Dorset Council on our behalf and its disposal.
So it's the disposal of the waste.
Yes, the disposal of the waste. If we didn't have the visitors, we had no visitors, we wouldn't have their waste to dispose of, and we might be able to.
Right.
But so it's not our, it's, you know, it's not our residents' waste, it's our visitors' waste. So it's.
So if you could find a way of disposing of the waste without it creating CO2,
Yes.
you'd be onto a winner.
Yes, we're going. I am trying to push for a targeted campaign this summer, where we bang on at every opportunity about taking your waste home, because we've got a few signs out, but we don't have the, you know, we have a tannoy system for the beach. We could be a message from a child saying, you know, you've come to our lovely beach, please take your waste home with you, and more posters and more social media stuff. We just have to we have to try, because I think it costs us over £200,000 to keep the beach clean, and that's a huge percentage of our budget. And if we can invest something into a campaign, maybe we can recoup by not having to spend quite so much money. But it's about the recycling as well, and you know, the many.
Yeah, I see
problem.
that supposedly by 2027 we're going to have a bottle return scheme.
Yes, we are, which will be a great help, I think. But nobody seems to have nailed paper cups, because paper cups were the great thing, but then nobody knows how to compost them or dispose of them, and they just go into incinerators, and incinerators are bad. So it's,
yeah,
we can't, you know, it's very difficult. Anyway, thank you.
A couple of years ago, I was involved with a scheme for developing a pollution-free incinerator, which the Americans had developed during the START missile reductions, and they had to find a way of getting rid of missiles without polluting the atmosphere. So there is a facility available, and we needed to raise £14 million to get a pilot scheme up and running. And we got to 12, and then everything went out and COVID got in the way and all sorts of things. So if anyone's got £2 million spare, please let me know. We'll be able to develop.
We're busy fighting an incinerator. They want to put an incinerator on the Jurassic Coast.
Yeah, well, this is a system that works without any sort of chimney, so it's not generating any.
Yeah, well, that's what we need to replace, an 80-foot chimney that 80-foot chimney, and we've done everything we can. The MPs have tried, but it's, I don't know, horrible, absolutely horrible.
So
and that's interesting. Bolton has a zero bins policy.
Oh,
very interesting. So what happens?
You know, provide bins, rubbish will come. I always say this about car parks. Provide a car park, you invite cars to come. You've got to stop inviting them.
Right. Can you hear me? It's Amanda here from Bolton.
Yeah, hi Amanda.
Hi, sorry to pop in, but I'm traveling at the moment, so I'm hands-free in the car, so I can't see. I hope it's okay to jump in at this point. Bolton's declared its intention to be bin-free in the village centre, which is the main tourist village centre, on the grounds that residents are currently having to pay for the bins to be emptied, and yet it's the businesses that make the profits. So we want to change it to be more polluter pays. And at the end of the day, a bit like with unions, where we've got a get active approach, which is you've got to have people feeling angry before they're motivated to get involved. And so, and then you turn it into hope, so that we don't have this sort of climate depression and anxiety. So what we're looking at doing is we've got this policy, we talk to the businesses, and ultimately they will have a mess of a visitor attraction if they don't find a solution. Because why should residents carry on paying it, and why should the climate have to? Yeah. There's no incentive otherwise. So it's incentivizing the polluter to deal with it.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm not saying we've got a decent plan for how it's actually going to be achieved, but if you don't have that statement of intent and set it, I mean, we put this up about 3 years ago, and I don't think anybody's actively doing very much other than highlighting to businesses that they better get their act together.
We'll all be watching you, Amanda, with fascination.
We'll have devolution, of course, before then, which will change all sorts of things, because the waste at the moment is dealt with by district council.
Yeah, we're going to have that. Yeah.
you know. So,
Yeah,
but anyway, look, I'll I'll butt out again and let you carry on, and I'm just listening in the background.
Well, looking at your note, you say that you're going to have this policy in place by 2030. If anybody thinks that the unitary devolution is going to happen by 2030, you're very optimistic.
I don't. Right, I'm done speaking. Take care.
Okay.
And thanks, Liz.
Thank you. See you soon.
Inspiring as always. It's always great to learn more from Charlbury. I visit quite regularly, and every time there's a part of something that you've done that I didn't know about. So well done.
Okay, thanks.
So I'm looking for any more questions from anybody that they need answering or asking at the moment. Any interest from anyone? There was a question from, oh, you already answered Andrew Clegg's question in the chat about other equivalents to cozy homes.
Yeah, so the Manchester one and London ones, they're on different models, because I think they all started with government funding, but the Oxfordshire one was they had to target the able to pay market, whereas Manchester and London, you know, had different objectives, and I'm not sure what they are.
Right. Well, as I said before, it was a really fascinating discussion, Liz. Thank you so much for A, volunteering, and B, doing it after your illness. So as for all those who don't know, you're a survivor of the latest flu bug going around.
Yes. But this is, I think this is great, you know, the more we can learn from one another, the better.
Yeah, exactly. So next week, for those of you who are looking to compete with NALC's Climate Emergency Network, we are going to be talking to a community energy company from the Isle of Wight who have really got a tale to tell of how not to do things because they aren't being tremendously successful. And I did think it would be very useful to people to see what are the errors that you can run into and what can we do to rescue them or anybody else in the same sort of ship or boat.
I think, yes, actually, I used to work with, he was a fellow director of mine in a wind company years ago, Colin Palmer, who's now on the Isle of Wight. And it's, I don't know who's coming to speak, but
it's a gay, Stephen Cockett is going to be speaking, but I don't know whether he's linked with Colin Palmer. But by all means, do show up next week, Liz, and throw in your.
Next week, I think is there's a FIPL event I'm going to, so I shan't be able to, but I'll, you know, keep track on the wiki and subsequent sessions.
Yeah, I'm very astonished at people who find they've got higher priority items than our wikis. Well, look, thank you all very much indeed for coming. I hope that you'll continue to come, and thank you for all the contributions, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Take care, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Liz.